Many of us have probably been in this situation, sitting in a meeting where someone presents the most brilliant strategy you've ever heard. The plan is flawless, the logic is bulletproof, and everyone's going like, yeah, this is it. Fast forward 6 months, and somehow this genius plan is just gathering dust, while everyone's running around busier than ever. Turns out the secret sauce isn't just having smart ideas. It's being the person who can actually make those ideas stick. It's about reading the room, speaking human instead of spreadsheet, and turning all that busy energy into something that actually moves the needle. And I'll be discovering exactly that with my guest, Faris Aranki, today. Welcome to the show, Mind Blend. I'm your host, Karen Chong, and I'll be diving into the minds of incredible people, each an expert in their very own way. Together, we'll uncover insights and share ideas so you can be inspired and empowered to navigate your own unique journey in life. Ready to get curious and discover what's possible? Let's blend. Today, I'm mind blending with someone who's gathered a lot of lessons from a very diverse career and life journey in many countries and industries. He's now helping business unlock success through a sharper focus on a few things, which we will talk about. I have Faris Aranki with me today. He is the CEO of a strategic consulting company called Shiageto Consulting. Hi, Faris. Welcome to Mind Blend.
Hello, Karen. Sorry, I was so eager there. I jumped in before you finished. But it's great to be with you and the viewers/listeners, the mind blenders. Let's call them mind blenders. Is that a phrase you've used before?
I may start using it now. So I'm very excited to be talking with Faris today because you have something that I'm really passionate about in
Okay.
your background.
Yeah.
But let our listeners know more about you. Tell us about your journey a little bit and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. I'll jump back to the start of my career. I won't go all the way back to my childhood. I don't think anyone really wants that, apart from my therapist. But my career's had multiple stages, Karen, as I'm sure you know. But let's let the listeners. But so I started off as a school teacher. I used to teach maths and economics to high school students around the world. It was a great way to learn people skills and patience in particular, but also to explore different cultures because I worked in Latin America, I worked in South Asia, I worked in the Middle East, and I worked back in the UK. But ultimately, the career of being a teacher wasn't going to be full time for me. So after 6 years, I switched into the corporate world, joining a big oil and gas firm where I ended up in their strategy team. And I discovered I loved all things strategic, analytical, solving complex problems. After a few years there, I was headhunted into strategy consulting, where I sort of worked my way up the ladder, spent 12 years going from analyst to partner. And it was at that point I decided to have the next challenge in my life. And I started my own business about 5 years ago, kind of doing a variation on the strategy consulting, but I really spotted something that could be more impactful for the teams that I worked with, which was helping them be working better together around their own strategy. So that's when Shiageto was born.
So you have done consulting
Yeah.
as someone else's employee for
Yes.
a while, and
Yes.
then you decided to do this on your own. What
Sure.
inspired you to do that?
Well, a couple of factors, but ultimately, when you are working under somebody else's tune, you have to do the things that they want you to do. And I'd sort of lost some of the passion for what I was doing, partly because I'd morphed into what the business needed me to do, but also I realized it wasn't making as much of an impact as I'd hoped, because 12 years of writing strategies for other people, I realized that if you hand another person or a team or a company a strategy, 9 times out of 10, they don't actually do the strategy. Not because it's a bad idea, but because they either don't understand it, they don't believe in it, they don't even have the bandwidth to do it. Or there are loads of other factors. So unless you fix all those things, you could be handing over the golden goose and they just won't be using it. So, I realized I was very good at fixing those things thanks to my range of skills. So that's what I realized should be my business. Get in the middle of teams, get them to work better together so that the strategy is more likely to take off.
Yeah, I was in advertising agencies before,
Okay.
and more often than not, we build them this amazing deck and
Yeah.
all the toolkits,
Yes.
and they don't know how to roll it out, or they end up coming back to us. We need more help. So I
Yes.
totally understand how
Yeah.
you must have been feeling, and having more impact in the business is extremely gratifying. So I want to hear how you help business do their business better.
How can you have more impact? How
Yeah,
can you
I'm
get?
trying to not spoil too much.
You're trying to not spoil it. Spoil away, give spoilers. But you're absolutely right, right? So much of in consulting, people overfixate on the set of slides. In a branding agency, in a strategy consulting firm, you over-index, and it's a bit like communication. We over-index on the words we're about to say, not how we say them or how we look when we're saying them. And it's the same. The slides are just slides. Okay. And the way we work with companies and get them working better, we say, okay, let's make sure you've got the best idea, the best slides. Right. That's part of it. So if you need help there, we'll help you. Right. But step two, let's make sure everyone understands the slides and is passionate about them. Right.
Mhm,
That's the second pillar. Are people excited by the idea, by the strategy? If not, we need to fix that. And then the third part is it's all good and well having a great set of slides, lots of people understanding them and buying into. But if you're not focused and you don't keep attention on the slides, then you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve, right?
mhm,
So the third pillar where we help people is to increase their levels of focus around a strategy.
mhm.
So we call these IQ, quality of the idea, EQ, the buy-in to the idea, and FQ, the focus around the idea. And that's really how we make an impact with teams, companies, and strategies.
Mhm. Have you seen, or can you share a story of
Yeah,
a client that you're helping, and
yeah,
you see the red flag about how not focused they are,
yeah.
and how you help them identify it, and how you went about helping them solve their problem?
Well, on the focus one, so there's always a one of those three pillars that is wobblier than the other. And on
Yeah.
the focus one, the big thing we always see is it's a lack of prioritization.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
You see that at a macro level that they're just doing too many things for the size of their team or the size of their company.
Mhm,
It's great if you're a giant organization, a Coca-Cola, you can do hundreds of strategic projects. But if you're a smaller business, even once you start doing more than 20 projects, you're beginning to put strains, not just on the actual physical bandwidth of a person, but the mental bandwidth. Should they do A or B or C? It's hard for an individual to determine what should be most important. So we see this time and time again when we go into companies. And the single greatest thing we can do there is to help them let go of things.
mm,
Because
yeah.
they often know they shouldn't be doing so many, but knowing and doing are two different things.
Mhm,
And we have lots of different techniques to do that. And one of my favorites is turning projects or initiatives into Pokemon cards.
oh,
Uh,
wow. I'd like to hear more about that.
so what I'll do with an organization is I will do an audit and I'll say, how many projects have you got? Okay. And, I'm thinking one company that I worked with, they had over 200 projects and they are only about a 60-person business. So
Mhm,
it's a lot of projects. And that each of those projects had a logical reason why it existed.
mhm,
Yeah. They needed to overhaul their accounting software because their account, you know, but what it meant is it was putting tremendous strain on the teams to actually deliver these.
mhm.
So I said, okay, leave it with me. And overnight, I turned each of those projects into a Pokemon card.
Right?
Now, as per a Pokemon card, for those who haven't seen a Pokemon card, and but it's basically got a set of data points,
Yeah.
right?
How strong,
How
like, each one
strong, how
has a
tall,
score, right?
yeah, a score. And then you play which card has the highest score, you win,
Mhm,
depending,
mhm,
depending on what characteristic you call that. So turn these into cards because they have data. They each had a business case behind each project. So they had data around how long is this going to take? How much money is it going to cost? How much benefit are we going to get from it? How many employees do we need to work on it?
mhm,
And so overnight, we turned those into cards and we put a Pokemon picture on each.
mhm,
And I came back into the boardroom and I said, we're now going to play Pokemon for the next hour.
mm,
Okay. You each get a random set of cards of these 200. And so we played. And now
mhm,
certain of those cards kept losing because the stats were so weak compared to the other.
mhm, mhm,
And that's where people began to get frustrated. And I said, well, the simple solution to make your deck of cards, your personal hand better, is to get rid of the weak cards.
mhm,
All right. So it gave them permission to throw them out to make their hand stronger. And every one of those that they threw away, it was getting the pool of projects down. So after an
Mhm.
hour of playing, we'd gone from 200 to less than 50.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Okay. And once they'd seen it and had that ability to, in a fun and engaging way, those became the 50 projects that this company was now focused on.
Mhm. Did you see a change in their attitude when they were playing and starting to slowly trying to understand what you were trying to do?
Yeah, because if you can help somebody reframe something, take some of the emotion out, or bring a different emotion in, a playfulness, a fun, it does. It really allows them to slow down their thinking
Mm.
instead of fighting every battle over I need this project. Because often some of it was ego driven. Like I had created,
Yes.
I personally created this project a year ago. I cannot let go of.
Mhm. Mm.
But if you create a nice, safe, fun environment, it's easier to let go.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the single biggest thing sometimes you can help is handling that emotion and giving permission, creating a safe environment. So a
Mhm.
lot of the secret behind the work we do is about creating that thing, because
Yeah.
it's not like we're working with people who aren't clever, don't know what they should do.
Yeah.
It's often they're not safe enough to do it or don't take the time to do that. So
Mhm.
sometimes that's the single greatest thing as an external party that you can bring to a group, that
Mhm.
challenge, that reframing.
Mhm.
So that's what we do. We often go in, spot behaviors and go, instead of telling these people off, instead of,
Yeah.
how can we help them let go of it or change that behavior in a safe, fun, or sometimes without them even realizing?
Mhm. Yeah. I think that's a secret magic power there. You cannot tell them, okay, you should stop saying this way. Instead, say it this way. You're
Yeah.
just going to get resistance.
Yeah.
And ego, it's a big thing. And
Ego is a big,
egos, emotion. I want to
yeah,
dig in a little bit more about that aspect because I'm a very big believer of how important EQ is
yeah,
because I'm in project management field. So
yeah,
having solid EQ let alone high, but just solid EQ is very important because of the people, the stakeholders, the clients, your team. There's so many
yeah,
personalities, and I think it's something for me. I see that it's very important if I were to hire someone.
yeah,
How have you observed in the different companies that you've helped? How is EQ, the
yeah.
emotional quotient,
An
being
emotional quotient.
treated, or
Yeah.
do they acknowledge that, or
Well,
how do they go about?
yeah, it's really interesting. In the first year of my business, I used to use the phrase EQ a lot and emotional
Mm-hmm.
intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great. It would, be lots of interesting conversations. But then when it came to people putting money into improving EQ, then
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm not interested. Right? It's not a hard and
Yeah.
fast metric. It's not like sales. It's not like, something I can actually I can see a measurable uplift. So I realized that I should change the point of the conversation and talk more about those hard metrics. But really, behind it sits a lot of EQ. I I often go into companies, explain the three pillars, and I'll say, by show of hands, which one do you think is your weakest?
Mm.
And it's fascinating. Every time I do this, the same thing happens. Most people raise their hands around FQ, focus.
Okay.
We need
Okay.
help with focus,
Yeah.
right? Because when you unpack it, it's easier for a human being to admit that they're weak at focus than to say, I'm weak at IQ, I am not as clever as I think I am, or I'm weak at EQ, I'm
Yeah.
not as good with people as I think I am.
Yeah.
But a focus, yeah, I get distracted by my phone. I'm happy to admit to that, and blah blah. That's what they think. But the
Mhm.
reality is, most of our projects are around EQ. Right, so it's interesting. People don't have the self awareness or the confidence to voice it out loud to say,
Mm.
actually, this team aren't working well together. They don't really take each other's into consideration, and it's not
Mhm.
because they're bad people. It's probably because they're too busy. They're unaware. But
Mm.
that is the reality. That's where we work. Spend a lot of our time investing our efforts as a company. Uh,
Yeah. And the person raising that,
yeah.
in a way, others can interpret that this person is already not a team player by saying that,
Yes.
saying that our team does
Yeah.
not work well together. And I do think there's a lot of value in investing energy in that.
Yeah.
And I want to dig into this behavior teamwork because I just came back from an Athens project and there
Yeah.
was a lot of teamwork involved. Many different parties, many opinions, and not being able to balance those could have made the project fail. So how do you help companies improve or strengthen
Yeah.
how the people can work together?
So, bear in mind, we work in one of two ways. Either we get in the middle of a team
Mm-hmm.
and fix things, change things, or we teach the leaders what they should be doing, the sort of skills and the daily behaviors to get the best out of their team.
Mm-hmm.
So on the former, where we get in the middle, something that's so common is just we realize teams A don't know each other well enough. They're not putting themselves in the shoes of their
Mm-hmm.
components. And that's partly because they don't allocate enough time, but also they just don't know enough about the person sitting opposite them or sitting by their side day in, day out. All right. And what I mean by that is, yes, know some of the facts around them. Do they have kids? Do they have,
Yeah.
what their
Yeah.
birthdays? But also know their style. How do they like to be communicated to? Right? Are they a morning or a night person? Are they a detailer? Right? Because the single greatest gift you can give another human being is to treat them how they like to be treated, not how you like to be treated.
Yeah. Yes.
And you can only do that if you actually know the person sitting next to you.
Mm-hmm.
So we quickly foster that where it's missing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's building trust too. If you know the person, I'm not saying you have to be friends and you don't have to go after work every day, but if you have something a little extra that
Yeah.
helps you connect to the person, it always helps. There used to
With-
be something at a company that I worked at.
Yeah.
There's like a personal manual almost that says
Okay.
how I consume information,
Yeah.
how basically a manual to work with me. And when that was shared with the team, it
Yeah.
helps kind of set boundaries also. I
Yeah.
think like we know that they have kids' duties after 4 p.m. every day. So we just give them the space that they need. And as long as we get what we want, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what time it is, type thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think a lot of companies embrace that much. Would you agree?
I'd agree. And that's what that's what I learned in consulting is
Mm-hmm.
because in consulting, you're rapidly bringing teams together just for a short space of time.
Yeah.
So you need to accelerate that learning curve. And so we used to have templates like that,
Mm.
where you'd write before the first meeting, this is what I like here, and then you present yourself.
Yeah.
And then the next step is write a little ways of working team charter.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Hey, let's make it 10 rules that we all stick to. We don't email before 8 a.m. We don't hold a meeting. We meet at least physically once a week or every
Mm-hmm.
right. Just simple rules to accelerate the getting the best out of a group. And that is severely lacking in a lot of companies. That's often a quick reset that I do with teams.
Yeah.
Hey, we need this, right? It'll be worth the investment of 90 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Because either they're moving too quickly and they forget to do these simple things,
Mm-hmm.
but also you don't want to overcomplicate it. Because if suddenly you've got 20 people in your team, you don't want to have to read 4 pages of bios on each person.
Yeah.
So it's that balance between giving it enough care, but making it so accessible,
Mm-hmm.
right, and memorable. And I don't have to look up every time I'm about to meet Karen. What do I? Yeah, I remember some simple stuff. So getting that sweet spot is always the difficult bit, because even in companies that I have done it, sometimes they go too far.
Yeah.
They over-index and they go, here's a whole bunch of information and nobody's going to read it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice that they thought about that, but it's just as bad as not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just knowing how to balance that probably got influenced by your experience working in different industries and with different cultures, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what you have learned or picked up while working in all these different cultures?
Yeah. I mean, I alluded to the main thing that I learned early on, which is don't apply your set of assumptions to the world. That's the single greatest thing I got from working in different cultures. Even things that you would say that's universal, there is no such thing that is universal with everybody. And I often do simple experiments to showcase to a team about how we all view the same thing completely differently, or why.
Yeah.
So that's number one, right? Do not that you are immediately going to be a trip over if you have that fixed view of everyone will appreciate this.
Yeah.
All right. So the best ways to overcome that is check early on how people like things, but also follow up after you broadcast a message. So many leaders focus on the broadcast. I got the message out. Are you spending as much time? You should probably spend even more time on the receive, going around everybody. Go, what did you just understand from what I just said to you?
Yeah.
What you just read, right? That's a really simple but valuable check. And So that's a key thing that I learned. But what what are sort of, if you have to make assumptions, safer things to do? Ironically, it's less is more,
Mm-hmm.
right? The simpler your message, the more people will be able to, um, understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you get very high IQ people, their tendency is to put more information, thinking that's more helpful for a layperson, but actually it confuses them. It's saying, um, it's saying to them, I can't choose what's the most important information that you should know. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
leaving to you to have to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas really good communicators make it very simple. And if the person wants more information, they can ask for it later on.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
tend to do the reverse, and that's where we
Mm-hmm.
begin to see some problems.
Yeah. So I have been so most of my careers have been
Yeah,
in the US.
sure.
And I know for the US audience, get to the point quickly.
Yeah,
Give me 3 bullet points of what I need to do,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you can go into the details. So for like, I don't really know if that's more a US thing or is that a an effective communication thing. Because I do think there are different audience. If you have audience it's not even just culture, just the field that they're in. Because I
yeah,
have a lot of engineering friends. I would ask a question, they would give
yeah,
me a bunch of numbers,
yeah.
and then I would ask again. So, is it cold or hot today?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think it's
yeah.
very important to
It's
tailor.
very important, and there's a great chap called Rory Sutherland. Have you ever heard of Rory Sutherland?
No, I don't think so.
Behavioral uh, marketer, behavioral science. He uses a lot of behavioral science and marketing. Anyway,
Mm,
I've seen him talk about what, and he gives this great example of, um, and it lends itself back to what I said about give a person what they want. He said, take the US. In the US, there are two different states that, New York
mm,
versus Texas, the deep South, right? Or in New York, it is a sign of respect when you communicate to talk quickly and get to the point
mm,
because you value the other person's time. They're very busy. In
yeah,
the deep South, it is a sign of respect to take your time and give the person due respect and sit around for a long period and listen to their stories and right. And so you cannot have one rule that covers the whole US around what is the single best way to communicate with another human being.
yeah,
So yeah, you're right. But in most business contexts, if I always say to people, if you have to make a choice between those two, it's far easier to go with the shorter and then you can expand. Because if you go with the longer, you can never take backwards.
yeah. And you already lose them.
Yeah.
What countries have you worked in?
So I had the pleasure. Well, I worked in a lot of countries thanks to
Mm,
consulting. Now I spent
yeah.
a large amount of time in. Said I lived in Latin America,
Mm,
so I worked in El Salvador.
mm,
And I love the Latin culture. It's very, it is quite familial based, quite
familiar, yes. I
lively.
was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah. And then I worked in Nepal.
Mm,
So kind of a much calmer, more sort of a communal kind of
mm,
culture.
mm,
Um, and I worked in the Middle East. I've worked across the Middle East, but was based in Palestine when I
okay.
went there. But again, and it's easy.
Very different.
It's very different to those other two cultures I talked about. But even within the Middle East, people group the Middle East together. But even Arabs are different depending on each country. They speak different languages. They have different
Yeah.
expectations. And I've worked across Europe. Last year, I often tell this story. I was working for a big global FMCG,
Hmm.
products company, delivering a leadership training program across the different continents. So it's exactly the same leadership training, teaching them how to think strategically, communicate, but in each culture had to take into account, in each continent had to take into account the different cultures.
Yeah.
So when delivering the training in a European basis, and I ask a simple question, what do we all think about this? You'll get people, have views, and be very dominant. Same in the US, I know the answers. In an Asian culture, when I was over in Singapore teaching the same content, it was much more, everyone is very reticent. Everyone looks to the most senior person in the room. What do they think before I share my opinion? Um, and when I was in the African continent teaching the same thing, everybody stands up and leaps up and wants to share a story with you and a viewpoint. And not each of their viewpoints is very long. So there's no right or wrong, but just as a facilitator, as a trainer, as a leader, you have to be accommodate that. So In the Asian culture, I learned to use micro breakouts. So you make sure there's no dominant hierarchical
Mm,
person in the room so that
yeah.
everyone can feel emboldened to talk. In the African culture, I learned to be much more authoritative and say, right, only you are going to speak and only you are allowed to speak for 2 minutes maximum.
Mm,
And they didn't take any offense, right? So it is really that adaptation to the different cultures that brings the richness out of a group.
yeah. It helps you just adjust your style too,
Yeah,
depending on the audience.
yeah,
Because I have facilitated workshops too, and same thing. I expect the more Western, like maybe Western European cultures to be more open,
yeah,
Asians more reserved, and you can call people, but there's
yeah,
also an art in how you call people so they don't
yes,
feel embarrassed.
yes,
But you also get them to feel like they have a chance to voice their opinions.
yes,
What
yeah.
has been a surprise that, like, share a story of a surprise that you have experienced when living in other countries and cultures?
Oh, I've got so many, both personal.
Share more than one.
But I mean, so many things are a surprise. So many times I've been like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And it's how you handle that surprise often. Um, Now, one of the examples I often give is when I lived as I was a much younger person in Nepal, and I was living with a local family, and it was something very simple. I'd been living with this family for a week, and I had applied my very British mindset to please and thank yous.
Yeah.
So I'd perpetually be asking I'd be saying please and thank you every time I asked for something. And I remember a week in, and we were having dinner, and I asked the father of the family, could you please pass the salt to me? And he suddenly erupted. He literally threw the salt in my, and he could see he was getting physically angry. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
and he shouted at me, stop saying please and thank you.
Mm-hmm.
In my head, I was like, wow, why should I
What did
stop
I
saying?
do?
What did I do?
Mhm.
And I said, okay, but can you explain why? And he said, in our culture, we use please and thank you when somebody does something, you know, of a magnitude that is great. They do something that is literally earth moving. Like they save your life.
Mhm,
Well,
mhm,
that's the time, right? If it's something so small that any human being doing it, like passing the salt,
mhm,
saying please and thank you is an insult. You're
mm,
implying that I wouldn't do this. That
huh,
I don't see you as another human being who deserves to be passed some salt.
hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he said, by you saying it all this time for such minor, innocuous things,
Mhm.
you are insulting me.
Oh, wow. I'm glad you got that cleared up.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was like, wow, that is quite surprising to the Western culture. Whereas if you don't
Mhm,
say it, it's a big insult. Like, how rude are you? You didn't thank me for, passing you this, for giving you. So I had to really recalibrate, and it was a real force of will to stamp that out.
mhm.
Right? To all the time I lived there to not say these things. And of course I said it when it was big, important things, Someone had genuinely done something that was massively impactful on my life. That's when I got out the please and thank yous. But what then was equally weird is when I moved back to the UK, for the
Yeah.
first 6 months, I wasn't saying please and thank you, and everyone around me would go, "What's wrong with you? You're so rude." Yeah,
So did the person in Nepal explain how you should say?
yeah,
Like, just pass me the salt or
yeah,
whatever, like, mm,
yeah. It was like just pass this
yeah.
on. That's it. That's all you need to do.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
that's interesting because to me, I don't say please a lot
yeah.
because I feel like you say please when you are slightly sarcastic.
Okay.
So, like, would you mind doing something?
Yeah.
That's fine. Could you please not do something? Like it's
Okay, I see.
that. So I
It's
tend to not
emphatic.
say
Yeah,
please enough, but I should. Like even to my husband, I don't say please enough because when I say something, please, I'm emphasizing on the fact that it wasn't done.
yeah.
So yeah, it's all very, very different.
It's what makes English so learning any language so difficult. It's again goes back to the slides or the idea versus the application. Emphasis tone means so much more than the actual word. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I always often tell that story because it was so impactful. It made me rethink. Because after that, I was like, what else am I doing that's probably irritating people in this country? And I have no idea whatsoever. Because not
Yeah.
everyone is going to be like the dad, take time to explain to me. They're just going to get angry
Yeah.
at me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of those situations. and lots of in hindsight they've funny mix-ups, but at the time very stressful. When you're
Very, very
in
stressful.
the
Yeah.
situation, yeah.
Yeah. Like I've lived in Japan
Yeah,
and different cities in the US and now in the UK. Even just asking how are you is different because in the UK they ask you, "You okay?"
yeah.
I said, "Yes, I'm okay. What's wrong? Like, do I not look okay?" That's how I interpreted it
That's how
in the
you say it.
beginning,
Yeah.
but now I'm used to it. So I just say, "You okay?"
There's a secret hidden code. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of languages,
Yes.
I know there's a story about your company's name, Shiageto.
Yes. Sure.
Can
Yeah.
you
Well,
tell us a
if
little bit
you're a
more?
Japanese speaker, Karen, or you've spent time in Japan, maybe you already know. But for those who don't speak Japanese, shigeto is the Japanese word for a sharpening tool or a
Hmm.
sharpening stone.
Hmm.
So a stone you would use to sharpen a knife or a blade if it was going dull.
Hmm.
And the reason I named the company after this, and which it often confuses people because they either expect me to be Japanese or that we have a Japanese investment or a Japanese methodology.
Yeah.
No, it was just I was trying to find a name for the company, which was around making teams work better together, and
Hmm.
I couldn't think of any names in English that hadn't already gone. It's amazing how many websites are already gone and how many have been trademarked.
Hmm.
I then tried other languages. I speak Arabic. I tried Arabic words. I tried Spanish words because I speak.
Hmm.
But it was making dinner one night with my Japanese knife set, and I had to sharpen my own knives to cut the food I was preparing. And that's when I had a brainwave. I was like, oh my God, this is a metaphor for what I want to do with teams. And I wonder what the Japanese word for a sharpening stone is. I then lost about 4 hours of my life to researching it because there are whole websites dedicated to the art of sharpening
Yeah.
knives. And I learned that the shireto is the stone you use for the sharpest finish on the finest blades. So I
Yeah.
thought it was
Yeah.
very perfect
Hmm.
as a name.
Yeah. And it gives you a story too.
Gives me a story. Always tell more stories.
Yeah. When I read it for the first time, I thought it sounded Japanese,
Yeah.
but I I wasn't sure until when I found out more about what
Okay.
your company offers. So
Yeah.
I think it's perfect.
It's good. And do you
Yeah.
know what? 2 years into the company, I was working I was facilitating a session for a client, and there was a Japanese man in the audience. So
Hmm.
and over the coffee break, we were chatting, and he said, "Your company name, where is it from?" And I said to him, "It's a Japanese word. Surely you know what it
Hmm.
means." And he looked at me blankly, and I had a panic attack. I was like, "Oh my God, maybe I got it all wrong." And I said,
Hmm.
I said, "Shigeto, Shigeto." And he looked at me, and he could see the cogs whirring, and he suddenly said, "Ah, you have mispronounced it. It is Shigeto."
Mm.
Oh, all right. And
Shiageto. Yeah.
yeah, and then I was like, "Oh, thank God for that."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. At least it's spelled the same way.
it's felt the same way, but
Hmm.
again, it's about the intonation, how you say a word. And I know that
Yeah.
from speaking Arabic, that there are so many ways to say a word, even if it's spelt one way.
Yeah. Because I know the word shiage, but I have to look up the to part. I thought it was shiage and then the word for knife, but it's the kind of stone.
It kind of.
So yeah, you got it right.
There you go.
So yeah.
I mean,
So
yeah, I think we all have that. I have a lot, right? I tell a lot of stories. I reference a lot of research papers. And 1 in 10 times or in 50 times, someone in the audience will come up to me, or even worse, will just challenge, and say, "You've got that wrong. You've got that
mhm,
reference wrong. Or you said that quote wrong." And in the early days, I get very defensive and say, "Oh, sorry," but I welcome it, right? Yeah, actually, and from an EQ point of view, that's the single greatest thing you can do is sort of be open to criticism. It's that scariest thing that stops us from doing a whole bunch of stuff.
mhm,
Mm.
yeah. So being exposed to different environments, sharpening your tools from these experience, I
Yeah.
think we can both agree that this is invaluable in anyone's life.
It's been a big ethos for my own life when I look at it. I constantly taking on micro challenges, putting myself in places that I know I'll be discomforted
Mm,
to kind of flex that muscle because that's so much of what I teach other people. Right? It'd be disingenuous if I wasn't doing it and using myself as a mini experiment.
yeah. Yeah. I keep hearing it over and over again in many of my episodes.
Yeah,
Do something that makes you uncomfortable. That's how you grow. How do you try to get better at facing uncertainty
yeah,
and things that makes you uncomfortable? So I think it's a skill set that is becoming more and more sought after. You may not see it in all the job description. You have to be comfortable with uncomfortable. But I think it is increasingly important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree, but maybe we're sort of confirmation bias. We're just
Yeah, because we already know. And
get someone on your podcast who completely just
that's feeds into the second pillar that you
Yeah.
mentioned, like how you get the emotions to work with what the company is trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for this last part, I'd like to do some like quick lightning round type
Okay.
questions.
Yeah.
Not much thinking, gut reaction.
Okay. Oh.
So, all right, ready?
Yes.
Name a country that completely surprised you.
Well, I mean, from Nepal definitely ticks that
Nepal.
box, yeah.
Okay. A lesson you learned abroad that you still use today.
I mean that flex. Right? You can never flex enough. Don't expect the other person to flex. You do all the flexing.
Okay. And an EQ skills that you think more leaders need to develop right now.
Yep. Very simple. Speak less.
Yeah.
I often to make it easier for them, because lots of people tell them to speak less and listen more. I always say, ask one more question than you normally would.
Ask one more question.
Ask one more question. Because so many leaders are used to just talking at people but not asking questions. So, and it's great because for the leader who is already comfortable, it's adding one more question. For the leader who doesn't ask a single question, it's adding at least one. And that forces them to listen. Well, it should nudge them towards listening more.
Yeah. And just listening is an entire different podcast episode altogether.
It is. Yeah.
So much. Maybe we'll come back. Invite you back. We can talk about that.
Yeah.
And last one. Who is one public figure who is a perfect balance of the IQ, the EQ, and the focus quotient?
That's a really good thing. And, unfortunately, nobody is, right? Because even if you get it momentarily aligned on one thing in your life, something will come along and it will sort of topple one of those axes. But the best people realize which axis is the weakest and readdress. So I'd love to say a name, and I'm continually looking, and I fully hold up my hands when people say to me, "Oh, you must be great at all of these." I'm like, "No, I'm terrible at FQ. That's why I researched it so much. It's my Achilles heel, and I'm constantly working on it." Don't believe anyone who tells you they're good at all three.
Yeah, and if they think they are good at all three, maybe they're not so good at the EQ part.
Exactly. It's that self-awareness. Yeah.
Yeah. But thank you very much for your time today. I always love talking about living abroad and EQ because of what I do, and because I see that it's more and more increasingly important in our world today.
Likewise.
Yeah.
I think.
And what very importantly, how can anyone connect with you? Did not forget that.
Yeah. Well, we could have seen if they had IQ to work it out. But I tell you what, come and check out sheerghetto.com. You can get a whole bunch of tips and good ideas from there, and read a bit more about the company, and contact us through that. Or if you want a shortcut, come and find me on LinkedIn. There's only one Faris Aranki. I've already checked that years ago, and I reply to every message. I post every day little snippets from what we're up to and tips on how to improve your IQ, EQ, and FQ.
I would definitely put all of these in the show notes as well. And leave us comments too, like anything that sparks your interest in like just random things that popped into your mind.
Random. We'll share more stories. I've only shared little snippets from Nepal. I can share stories from El Salvador. When I lived there, it was the world's most dangerous country. So I've got a whole bunch of stories about kidnappings and near-death experiences, but that's for another podcast.
Yeah. And anyone who wants advice, you can also get Faris's advice on living abroad.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Mind Blend. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to follow and share it with anyone who needs to hear it. and let's keep the conversation going. Connect with me on LinkedIn or leave me a comment. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and let's continue to open our minds and discover what's possible.